Welcome back, everyone, to more from the Sable Eyes. I'm here today with Matt. How are we doing, Matt?
Yeah, good thanks, mate. How's yourself?
Yeah, going well. It's good to finally have you back on the channel, and we've got a really cool deck list today. One that you've been working on a little bit, and that's Excadrill.
Yeah, it's been fun. I figured that we've got a few pretty big decks, I reckon, that might be coming in the next format that are fighting weak. So why not start with a fighting deck that just uses one energy to attack with?
Yeah, it's pretty strong. It's one of those non-GX attackers that could potentially cause a bit of a stir. Things like Dark Box being hyped up, Pikarom still around. Lots of opportunities to take big one-shots. So it's your deck list. I'll let you take it away.
All right. So first up, we'll start with the main buddies. We've got little Drillbers, 70 HP. Not much else to really say about this. He's only there for obviously the basic side of Excadrill. But in a pinch, he's got the old Rototiller that you can get something back from your discard pile if you really need to. And then he does 10 damage with a Mud Slap.
So it's a perfectly acceptable basic, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. 70 HP is also good to have as a basic. But this is the stars, Excadrill. Now, he's only attacking for one energy. Both of his attacks. The first one's called 11th Hour Tackle, which does 30 plus. If you've got 3 or fewer cards in your deck, it does an extra 150 damage.
Well, that's pretty significant. So 30 damage if you don't have 3 or less cards, but up to 180 if you're down to those last couple of cards. So I guess the deck is trying to get that deck size down to those 3 cards so we can start using that attack for 180 damage, which is pretty good for 1 energy.
Yeah, that's correct. And the second attack, really, I mean, it helps get the first attack going as well. Drill Bazooka for 120, and you discard the top 4. So that just helps you get down to those last few cards.
Yeah, it's a bit of an expensive cost, I guess, to discard 4 cards from the top of the deck. But for 1 energy to do 120 is really big. That's knocking out a Pikarom. Like, that's a big deal. And it's half-hitting most things in the format. It's going to knock out Silvally as well, which is really cool. There's lots and lots of cool applications for that attack, and it's going to accelerate the chance for you to get down to your first attack, which will do 180, and we can hopefully start taking some even bigger knockouts.
Yeah, well, that's it. And like you said, Pikarom and Silvally are going to be pretty popular in the next one. I mean, Silvally is going to be the next Zoroark, just about. But also just even to Denes, you can get them off the board and one-shot them quite easily.
Yep, you certainly can.
Alright, so that's the main Pokemon. Then we go into pretty much our support. Don't really need to explain to Denes. That's there just for draw, discarding cards, getting further down to those last couple of cards than you need, and just all-round good card.
Yeah, it's going to be most of our draw in this set, in this deck as well, because we're not really going to have any draw supporters as such. Most of the supporters that we're going to be playing are going to be around discarding cards from our deck. So the Dene is going to be the main way that we're going to try and get our hand refreshed if we don't have a super great hand. We originally started testing the list with Jirachi when we started looking at it, being like, oh, we're not going to play the Dene, we'll start with Jirachis instead, and it'll be effectively the same, and it wasn't. So we decided that the Dene is probably the way to go.
That's it. And next we come to a new Pokemon, Fione. It's got a pretty cool ability. It's essentially a repel on a Pokemon that puts itself back to the deck, under the bottom of the deck, that is. Yeah, it's just a way of getting something out of the active that not necessarily you might want to be hitting into, or just being a pain for your opponent.
Yeah, and the best thing about it is once we get down to those low card sizes in our deck, we're going to be able to move Fione from the bench to the bottom of our deck to ensure that we aren't going to deck ourselves out. Obviously, if we end up playing against Mill, we might find it a bit awkward because they might discard them, but with Fione going to the bottom of the deck, we can guarantee that we're going to at least have a card to draw into. So if we go for a long time attacking with Excadrill, because Excadrill has 140 HP, like it's hard to knock out. You can't even knock it out with a Giratina. That Fione is going to make sure that we give ourselves the best opportunity to get as many attacks off for 180 as we can.
Yeah, that's right. Just a Ditto Prism, just for an extra basic to evolve into. There's nothing wrong with having 5 basics to evolve into an Excadrill, so why not play it?
Yeah, and we do need to make sure that we've got as many basics in play as soon as possible. This deck kind of feels a little bit like Greninja in the old days, Matt, which you've had lots of experience with, where you need to have like a lot of basics out really early so that you don't get yourself into a position where you don't have access to the Excadrill on a turn. Because if you miss with this deck, it can be awkward to catch back up. You just got to make sure you scream those attackers all the time.
That's right. And then lastly for the Pokemon, Diancie Prism Star, just to make some of the bigger numbers that we might need to hit, like some of the bigger Dark Box Pokemon have 270 HP, so an extra 20 damage just allows us to one-hit those.
It does, and it means that Pokemon like Reshizard or Charizard Braixen, which I've been seeing is getting some hype on all sorts of these other big tag team GXs, they become 2 shots instead of 1 shots with the second attack, instead of 3 shots, sorry, from the second attack. So instead of hitting for 120, we're hitting for 140. That's really, really strong. We want to make sure that we're getting as much value out of our attacks as we possibly can.
That's right. Alright, so we'll just move into the supporters now. A new supporter coming from the set. We've got Rosa. And this is the deck's teammates, pretty much. One of your Pokemon gets knocked out. It doesn't have to be damage. It can be anyway from your opponent's turn. You can then search for a trainer card, a Pokemon, and a basic energy card. So all 3, which just gets your Excadrills going a lot quicker.
Yeah, it does. Once you've got Roses in hand, what you can do is you can obviously search out Excadrill and an energy to get yourself attacking. And if you want, you can grab another trainer, maybe another Rosa for next turn if you're expecting your Excadrill to get knocked out, or anything else that you might need to set yourself up. You could go through, grab yourself another supporter. Maybe you need to discard some cards. Maybe you want to shuffle some stuff back into your deck. We'll explain how we're going to do that a bit later on. Or maybe even grab yourself a cheeky giant bomb, Matt.
That's right. And we'll get to that one a bit later on.
We certainly will.
Next up is Clay. Now this one here is just discard the top 7 cards of your deck. If you find any item cards in there, you can put them into your hand. So this will help you get things that will just help search out more Pokemon, get things back from your discard, and just thin through your deck even more.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a gamble. Obviously, we're going to be discarding supporters, Pokemon, and energy if we do use Clay. But it's one of those kind of... It's obviously going to get through your deck very quickly. Like a Dedenne and a Clay in the same turn are removing 13 cards from your deck, which is a lot. But sometimes Clay can be like really big. You can pick up like 5 or 6 item cards off of a Clay, whereas other times it can be really bad where you discard 5 or 6 Pokemon and energy off of a Clay. So it's a bit of a gamble, but it's going to help you get through your deck quickly, and that's the most important thing.
That's it. And if we're not sort of wanting to discard, Pokemon energy and supporters, we can actually just play Hapu, which will search through the top 6, and you get to choose 2 of them and then discard the rest. So at least you can get an energy or a Pokemon this way, a bit safer than with Clay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Clay Light Hapu, isn't it? Like, you might not get the big turn that you wanted off of a Clay, but you might be just looking for an energy. Like, I just need an energy to attack. Hapu might be the way to go, because you can just chuck it down, find one of those cards out of the top 6, put it onto your Pokemon and start attacking, and you don't have to worry about the big discard from Clay if it were to be a horrible 7 cards.
That's right. Now to round off the supporters, Brock's Grit. Because we're relying on streamlining our Pokemon, we also are heavily discarding through our deck. We need a way of putting back energy and Pokemon, and what better way is to put 6 of them back in with a supporter.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward sometimes to find the time to put the Brocks down, to actually get them into the deck again, but when you do have that turn, if you can put all those Pokemon and energy back into the deck, then you're going to be in a really strong position. You notice we're playing really thick supporter lines here, because with Clay, Hapu, kind of discarding a lot of cards as well as the Dedenne, we're going to find ourselves accidentally discarding supporters here and then. So even though we probably only realistically want to play 1 Brock's Grit in the game, we're going to play 3 just in case things go horribly awry.
That's right. Alright, now we come to the trainers, or the item cards. We've got Pokemon Communication. Purely just to search out Pokemon, getting our either supports or our attackers, putting back into Dennes to do that as well before we discard a hand. just handy thing, and it's probably one of the best searches for Pokemon we have in the game.
And it's realistically one of the only search cards that we can use with consistency in this list. Excadrill and Drillbur are the keys, so Pokecom is going to help us find them, but it is important to note that you can get out of a pinch with this card as well. But I think we're also playing more Pokemon Search, Matt. Then we've got some Cherish Balls as well, haven't we?
Yes, we do. So, 3 Cherish Balls. Mainly, obviously, to get out the Dedennes, or you could even do the old trick of searching for Dedenne into Pokemon Communication if you don't need the Dedenne. It's just another way of getting around the hurdles that we have.
Yeah, and like we said, we need to discard through our deck really quickly, so even though we only have 3 Dedenne GX, that's our only GX Pokemon in the deck, we're going to play 3 Cherish Ball because we want to discard cards. We want to get through our deck as quickly as we can, and Cherish Ball is the best way to do it. And like you said, worst case scenario, we can search for a Dedenne and then Pokecom it back in for something that we really need.
That's right. More dig through the deck, just 4 Acrobikes, pretty simple. No real explanation needed with those ones.
Yep, just draw a card, discard one. That's more mill, that's what we're looking for.
That's right. A new item card coming from the set. We've got Lana's Fishing Rod. So this one here will shuffle back a Pokemon and a Pokemon tool card from the discard into the deck. Really handy just to recycle things, and the Pokemon tools that we do play in the deck are pretty handy, but yeah, just mainly for Pokemon reuse.
Yeah, and it's really important that we have this as well because we've got so many discard cards. We're going to find ourselves discarding things that we need. It's not uncommon to see Drillburs and Excadrills going into the discard really early. So Lana's Fishing Rod will give us the opportunity to get those back, and we can get the tools back as well, which is really good. We can get ourselves more Giant Bombs. I've already mentioned that one. Just to keep refreshing that kind of situation where we're threatening big knockouts on our opponent's Pokemon, and it's the best thing about this card is we can pick it up off of a clay and then shuffle back in the Pokemon that we might have discarded off of it, which is really good.
Yeah, well, that's it, and it also synergizes as well with Rosa, actually being able to get the Pokemon straight away that you bring back in with it, or even just making a Hapu maybe even a bit more reliable if you're looking for a Pokemon and energy.
Yeah, giving yourself the chance to draw into the cards that you need.
Yeah. So, tool cards, we've got 3 Giant Bombs. Now, in building this, we sort of thought that 140 HP is pretty hard for some decks to one-shot, and those that do one-shot them are probably going to do maybe 180 or more. So being able to put 10 damage counters on something that's doing 180 to us, then that just makes the math a lot easier.
It does, and like when you think about it, things like Giratina are going to do 130, they're not going to knock us out. Volcanion's going to do 110, that's not going to knock us out. Silvalley's doing 120, Alolan Persian's doing 120. All of these Pokemon are not quite hitting enough. One of the notable exceptions is Volcarona, that does 160, there's not a lot we can do about that. But the other Pokemon that we've got in the format, things like Reshizard and Mew Mew and Charizard Braixen that's coming out, all of these Pokemon attack for more than 180 damage. So if you could get lucky, chuck a Giant Bomb on, force them to hit into it to take a prize, because they have to hit prizes in this against this deck in order to keep up, then you might be able to make it a little bit easier for yourself to take a big knockout. And when Giant Bomb puts 100 on, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so 100 plus 120 plus 20 from Diancie, that's 240. And if you can get a couple of maybe bonus bits of damage from the Stadium card that we'll talk about a little bit later on, it's actually not unrealistic to say that you're going to one-shot or at least get pretty close to one-shotting a Tag Team GX with 270 HP if they've attacked into you. It's actually really, really strong, and it synergizes super well with Fishing Rod because even though we discard them at the end of the turn, we've got 4 opportunities to shuffle them back in. So realistically,
right.
we've got 7.
That's right, and who doesn't love 7 Giant Bombs?
7 Giant Bombs seems pretty good to me. That should be enough.
I mean, if I could play 7 of the old Bursting Balloon in the decks back then, that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're familiar with the channel, Bursting Balloon and Greninja, obviously, Matt's forte. He really liked that particular combination. Right. So it's the same thing, right? This is the same deck.
Pretty much. Yep. Just to round off the tools, just one Escape Board, just to help with Dedenne being a pivot for us. And even Fione has got one retreat, if I am correct.
Yes, he does.
Yep. Right, so
it's
pivots.
Yeah, it's really good. Obviously not going to go on Excadrill. Excadrill has a 4 retreat cost. Once that's in the active, it's in the active. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it there.
The bad thing about putting it on Fiona, obviously, you're going to discard it if you put it back into the deck, but mainly for, I guess, Dene just to act as a pivot.
Yeah, give yourself that retreat, which is always
That's
good.
right. 2 Poké Gear just to help search out supporters when we need them. Obviously, getting into the Rosa for the counter attack is a good thing, and then just helping you set up.
Yep, that might be a little bit thin, the Pokegear line, but there's only so many cards that you can fit in the list. 2 Pokegear is probably going to be enough to get yourself going, because once you've hit 1 Rosa, you can consistently hit as many as you like, so it should be fine.
That's right. And to round off the item cards, a Power Pad, because in testing, there was too many times that I discarded too many Brock's Grits, and I was getting frustrated, so I decided what better way to get them back and then use Power Pad.
Yeah, exactly. Power Pad, really important to get those cards back, and since you are discarding so many cards in this deck, you're gonna sometimes find yourself, Brock's Grits all gone, or maybe all of my Rosa just mysteriously disappear. So I want to get them back somehow. Power Pad gives you the opportunity to do that.
That's right. And that's it for the item cards. We do play Stadium, like we said, and our choice is Martial Arts Dojo. We didn't have many other options, I don't think, for this deck. Didn't really need anything. The new one coming out could have been another idea.
Yeah, Chaos Sword.
Yeah, that's it. Just suck in the opponent's stadium when they play it. But this one here, obviously, it does help with some of the numbers. It's extra 10 damage. Might not do much most of the time, but the extra 40 damage when you're behind can surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, it can be pretty significant. The good thing about Martial Arts Dojo, like I'll run through a couple of situations that I thought up. Firstly, Martial Arts Dojo plus Diancie with the first attack does 150, which is enough to knock out a Giratina with resistance, so that's really good. You're able to knock out a fresh one of those. The other 10 damage means that you don't necessarily need to find the Diancie as early as you'd like to start getting those half hits. Doing 130 to a Reshizard and then finding a Diancie later means that you can hit the 140, and that's 270. So the 10 damage does come up here and there. It's not as important, but like you said, the 40 damage when you're behind, and you will be behind with this, this is a setup stage 1 deck. The 40 damage means that your 1 energy attack is doing at least 160, which is a crazy amount of damage for 1 energy.
And then when you get your deck down low enough, you're doing 220.
Yeah, 220 seems like a reasonable number of damage just for an energy. That's fine.
Yep, and if you got Diancie, it's 240. So.
Yep, and that knocks out a Pikarom even without without weakness. So he should be fine.
Right. That's right. All right, and then just rounding off the deck, we play 7 energy. Don't really need any more than 7 because you've got ways of obviously recycling that energy, but you're also only attacking with 1 energy, so it's not needed any more than that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the end of the world. You could potentially say, oh, well, 7's really high considering you only need to attach once, but we do have that problem where sometimes we have to discard them with clay, so giving ourselves the best opportunity to draw into one is always good. The best thing is, even if you've already got an energy attached, there's always going to be a Drillbur that you can attach an energy to before you have to get rid of your entire hand with a Dedenne or something like that. 7 seems like a pretty strong amount.
Yeah, that's right, and you always got to remember that people play Viridian Forest still, so I mean it's like you're playing 60 plus cards.
Yeah, exactly. So you can just kind of cheat, get the energy off of them. You just have to be careful that you're not playing a fire deck because they'll play half, and you can't get fighting energy from half.
That's right, yes.
But yeah, no, it's a pretty cool deck. We're going to see it a couple of times. I think we're going to have it up against Volcarona, which we've featured recently, and we might even see it up against Green's Charizard Breakson or something like that. I haven't quite finalised the list for that yet, so we'll wait and see. But it seems like a pretty fun deck, Matt.
It has been fun in the testing. I've liked it quite a lot, and it's always nice to have a non-GX/tag team deck go up against the big guys.
Yeah, and it's always good to see decks that could potentially be budget. Obviously, 3 Dedenne means that it's not a budget deck, but it could potentially be a good place to start. But hey, thanks, Matt, for sharing this one with us.
No worries, mate.
And thank you to everyone for watching. If you like the content, then consider subscribing. Click the Sableye in the middle of the screen. On the left-hand side, we've got some videos that YouTube thinks that you might like. And on the right, we've got our Cosmic Eclipse Training Center playlist for more profiles and matchups for the upcoming set. Thanks everyone for coming along, and we'll see you all next time for more from the Sableyes. Bye.